How has Deslin adapted to the position that Rashad had?
Well, Deslin has been playing it. He's just been behind Rashad, but I think Deslin he's embraced the role of being the starter, and he's a real conscientious kid anyway. So I expected nothing less. So we haven't really lost a beat. I think he's a great player, and I feel really good with him. I would have felt really good with him prior to this. Mm-hmm. It's sad to lose such a great player, but he'll be back also. He will be.
Patrick Jones, in years past, I've seen play a little bit of a mean streak. Is that have you seen that in practice?
Well, Patrick plays with an edge. There's no doubt about it. Off the field, he's one of the greatest kids you've ever meet. But on the field, he's got a little bit of an edge and plays hard. And I don't think he's cheap or abnormally above physical, but he is the kind of guy who plays to the whistle and through it. And he's certainly got a lot better also.
What kind of challenges do you expect to face with Bryce Perkins?
Well, he's a tremendous athlete. I mean, he's a Heisman Trophy candidate. He's one of the best. What he throw for 2,500 yards and rush for 1,000, and so he's multiple. He can run it, he can throw it. I think he's accurate. He's smart, and they put him in great positions to make plays. So it's a real challenge to number one, just keep him in the pocket, let alone tackle him.
A lot of those rushing yards come from a lot of quarterback draws. They do well to kind of set them up with those. I mean, what have you seen on film in that regard, and then how much responsibility does that fall on guys like Twyman and Amir to kind of bottle that up?
Sure. Well, a lot of it does. They've got to keep him in the pocket, and they've got to be aware of the draws. But he also, there's many times it's a scramble where guys miss him. But in both cases, it becomes the same thing. The D-line, they've got to get off blocks and make plays, and then we've got to get everybody back to the ball when we can.
How difficult of a challenge is it for Deslin that his first start is coming against a quarterback like that?
I don't think it's any different than anybody else. I mean, we see the same things week in and week out as far as read zones and stuff like that. With Perkins being such a great athlete, that's really where the challenge lies, as opposed to maybe a guy who's not quite as athletic. But you're going to see that week in and week out in our league anyway.
Why do you think you were so successful against Perkins last year?
I would say the number one thing is we kept him around the pocket. We had quite a few sacks. We were able to bring him down. I think when you watch people, you have to be able to tackle him. And obviously in the first game, that's always a concern, tackling. When you watch every game in the first game, tackling is suspect sometimes, and especially with a great athlete like that, you hope your tackling is solid.
Did you watch that Miami-Florida game and kind of see how sloppy the tackling was? I mean, is that something that can scare you?
No doubt. It always scares you in the first game, because a lot of drills you do are thud, where you don't bring guys to the ground, and then all of a sudden, hey, go out there and tackle everybody, and sometimes it takes a couple weeks for that to happen, and let's hope that doesn't happen this week.
Do you think a guy like Dane Jackson maybe gets a little overlooked from the outside perspective when you look at that secondary? Because obviously you have DeMar, and
sure,
Paris is kind of a flashy guy. I mean, Do you think Dane maybe gets overlooked a bit?
Well, in Dane's defense, I think he's been a great player for all these years, and I think at the end of the year, what matters is whether he gets overlooked or not at the beginning. If he plays it the way he has the last 3 years, I don't think he'll get overlooked. At this point, preseason, it really doesn't matter what your preseason polls are, and it doesn't matter what your preseason rankings and all that. It's what matters at the end of the season. So I think his body of work this year will bring him what he deserves.
Where in what areas maybe have you seen him grow during camp? And obviously he's a captain as well.
Yeah, well, he's stepped up as a leader quite a bit. We had a great leader in Dennis Briggs last year, and he's kind of stepped into that role and done a great job and leading the young guys, which is really important because we got a lot of young guys who are going to play.
Looking at that linebacker race, I mean, has it kind of spilled over from camp? Are they still kind of fighting for position?
Boy, they're still fighting. I mean, we've got two at our field position with Phil Campbell and Cam Bright. Mike, right now, really there are two still there, with Brightwell also. Those two positions for sure have become really, they're both going to play, and probably weekly it'll change.
How excited are you just to see DeMar and Paris kind of feed off each other in a game environment? I mean, you've you've seen them in camp do it, and
Sure.
they've been friends for a long time, but it's in that week one environment.
Well, they're great talent, and so I'm excited to see them out there, period, from that standpoint. But, the big issue is communication, and those two guys are a big part of it. And so I'm looking for them to pretty much run the secondary and get everybody lined up, and hopefully that will be as good as I expect it to be.
Within the course of a game, could Brightwell actually play Money and Mike in the same game?
Oh, for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, he's experienced it at both positions. Most of the linebackers can play all three positions.
Mhm.
So if you had a guy go down, you would be able to mix guys and match guys based on what you need.